Hey, this is Jen Walker with Walk Into Health, and I am excited to share with you a webinar that I will be doing for a fun group this weekend. And I was going to give you a sneak peek. So let me share my screen and we will get going on this. Okay, so, and I have notes on my phone if I'm glancing, that is why. And I am so excited to kind of share with you my thoughts on perspective. So perspective is huge along any course of life because it is how you look at things, right? And so this is me and my husband, and obviously we're not really holding this tower, the leaning tower, and my sister's not really putting her arm on the tower, but it appears that way, right? So perspective is the way that one looks at something. It is also an art technique that changes the distance or depth of an object on paper. An example of perspective is a farmer's opinion about a lack of rain. An example of perspective on a painting where the railroad tracks appear to be curving in the distance. So one thing that I think is really cool about this is applying this example of a definition to how we look at things. It says, the art technique that changes the distance or the depth of an object on paper. What about the depth of a circumstance in our life? Have you found that you've looked at something one way and in your life and that it isn't really so? Or what if the opposite is true? Or what if there's a billion ways to look at it, right? So I would love to ask you the question, what are common problems that come to your mind, okay? Is there money, kids, technology, relationships, cleaning your house, sugar addiction? So really, those are different examples of problems. And I want you to really come up with one that's in your specific life right now. What is standing between you and what you want? What is the obstacle that's in the way? So here's a couple of things. A lot of it's going to be right here with peace of mindset. Okay. What about business goals? What about relationship goals or body goals, right? So it's not the problem that's the problem. It's your choice to choose that problem daily. So isn't that the bigger problem, is that you keep choosing it? It's so interesting to think of it that way. Like, what are your excuses? And I wonder, if you can think of an example of this in your life, an example of me continuing to choose the same thing. I'm working on creating a new identity for myself in how I feel about sugar and specifically frosting. I had the identity that I really love it, and I'm working on that. And my excuses, I say that I eat it moderately, like yada yada yada. But really, the truth is, it still is something I think about, and I kind of have that over desire for it. And so I'm working on that. And I have worked on that in different examples, like bread and cereal and pancakes. I don't eat with my family for breakfast anymore if they are choosing to eat that. I just have a protein hot chocolate or something because I have my goals in mind. And if I'm going to have an intentional moment where I'm enjoying something, it's not going to be pancakes. So I wanted you to think of an example in your life of what is possibly an example of this. And I want you to think about how you park yourself at the pain point. Like if you're driving the car, you take your keys out of the ignition and you're parked right there. But really, are you stuck, or could you just turn on the car and go? Like, was that a conscious effort that you turned off the car? The answer is yes, it was. And so our perspective plays into this, and our excuses are what we're talking about in this moment. So have you felt stuck with relationships? Have you felt stuck in your business? Have you felt stuck in your life? And what are different ways that people feel stuck? Maybe they feel stuck with the teenager who keeps bringing up the same point, and the answer is no. Or they, you know, whatever it is that you keep headbutting. And what if you just you keep turning off the car? What if you turned on the car, came from a different perspective, and chose to think of it differently? Would it serve you? That's the whole question. Does it serve you now? Do you want the change? So can you identify, oh, I wonder if I shouldn't go to the slide yet. I'll go. Okay, I'll skip and come back. So this slide is pretty fun. Never get so comfortable with your problem that you forget that there's a choice. The thought is even a choice that you have. You can reprogram your brain to think different things. And this fish finally made that choice of, instead of this bowl, he can actually grow in the ocean. Like fish, I think, or goldfish specifically, they cannot literally grow in a confined place. But once they're in a deeper water, then they can. So I wanted you to think of how much of this is a choice. And then I want you to think, I want to teach you something really quick as far as fact versus story. So I want you to think of circumstances in our lives all have emotion around them, and that emotion around them make us human. So that's wonderful. That's great. But is it serving us, right? So sometimes breaking it down into what are the facts, and sometimes breaking it down to what are the story. And with that fact versus story. So a circumstance is something that doesn't change. It's like you objectively look at it and there aren't perspective with it. It's just the facts. Like in a court of law, it would be da 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 da. So that is a fact. And then a story is the emotion that you put to it that is your perspective. So like fact, I have hair. Story, my hair is blonde, because that's a descriptive word, okay? Fact, I have earrings. Story, they're cute, dangly, and long, because those are descriptive words compared to what, right? So with our own personal example, what is your barrier? Okay, think about it now. What are the facts about that barrier? And what are your stories that you've told yourself that you could, what if the opposite was true? And what if you, like, there's probably like 50 people who've had the same experience, or more, thousands of people who've had the same experience and had actually thought of it in a totally different way. Isn't that crazy to think of? So let me go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so have you said that you've had too many options? I wanted to, this picture is going to illustrate how there's a lot of different ways to look at it. There's a lot of different things you can see. Is your view serving you, and what perspective are you choosing to see? Okay, we kind of talked about that. So as far as obstacles, have you said that you have too many options? And that you don't know what works for you? Have you thought, other people are holding me back? And can you choose anything different? What are other things that you could choose? How could your obstacle actually help you grow? That is a huge question. Like this particular obstacle is made and designed to help somebody with coordination, most likely, and durability, right? And so this is designed to give you the ability to grow. And isn't that what our life obstacles are? Are we actually seeing them as an obstacle or an opportunity for growth? So there's also the thought, is this happening for you or to you? Like, is it that your mama's spanking your butt, you got to run through this obstacle right here? Or is it your health coach that's spanking your butt that makes you go through this? Or is it that you choose that you want to be strong and that you're going through it. It's your choice. Which is it? Okay, so here's another thought for you. Bedtime stories, okay? So think of that story when we had the parked car, that obstacle that keeps coming in the way. And let's pretend like you're reading to your child and you keep telling them that same story and it doesn't serve anyone. And I mean, what if we just talked about all the negatives and it keeps coming around. Thought error, keeps repeating because we've trained our brain to continue to think that way. And really, how can we take empowerment? The question to that is, number one, awareness and recognition of the situation and how you are taking a part of it. Okay, that's really, really important. And then second, how can, with you taking personal responsibility, then that will give you the ability to see where you can choose something different. The power of choice is so powerful. And then I love this too. You steer where you stare. And it's so difficult. Can you imagine really being on this little bridge with your bike? Like, I think I'd pee my pants like 10 times. I would be so scared to do that. And I remember riding my bike when I was little, and if I looked off, or if my kids, I've watched my kids, and if they're not looking straight ahead at the road, then they totally go, and they crash, right? And you really do have to steer where you're staring. And here's one more for you. I wanted to introduce you to the thought of, how do you change this? Awareness is what we were talking about, and like the story versus the fact versus story. And I wanted to teach you about the power of neutral. So a lot of times we kind of have the awareness, but how do we change it? And so one of the steps that you can take is putting it in neutral, putting your car in neutral. Maybe your car isn't working. How are you going to move it? You have to put it in neutral to push it, right? Like, you're not going to push it when it's in park, and you're not going to push it when it's in drive. You've got to put it in neutral to be able to move your car. So as you come to a neutral place, taking the emotion out of things, finding the facts, and then also looking at it from different angles, it will give you the ability to create a new story for you. And then I also wanted to talk about intentional replacement thoughts. And these are really important. So this is something that you can do intentionally. And we have to take all the steps before this one comes around. Otherwise, it's not going to really work together as a puzzle. So intentional replacement thoughts are things that you think of and plan ahead of time when you come to the situation. So if you, one of the things that I use when I think of something that doesn't serve my body as far as food goes, I say to myself, I can't get enough of what I don't need. And that has really helped me be able to say, oh my gosh, my brain is just throwing this at me because it's getting a dopamine hit, but do I really want this, right? Stop, challenge, and choose is another form of this. But intentional replacement thoughts, you need to have other thoughts that are backup thoughts that you can use to change the old pattern of thinking. And it needs to be like something either neutral if you haven't done this yet, or you'll want to move that from neutral to positive as you believe the neutral thing. So I have a body. My body has skin. My body has fat. My body works. I have a stomach. My stomach eats. It houses, it keeps all my organs inside. So there's the neutral place. And then moving to positive, then you can just say, I am grateful. That's where gratefulness comes in. So those are a couple things that are really helpful within this replacement thought. And I hope that you guys have some takeaways from this. Please share below and have a fantastic day.